So that okay, so cut. So, welcome again to my channel. Today I have the privilege of interviewing Ibby Tse, or Ibby Tse. So I met Ibby a couple of years ago at the Martial Club, and he does a northern style of kung fu, which called迷蹤羅漢in Cantonese. It has a big, well, I say it's had a long presence here in Hong Kong. Where Ibby invited me to his wonderful place here, which his wonderful place here to do the interview, and I'm very honoured to have him do it. Again, I've got a set of questions that I'm going to ask Ibby, and he's going to answer them along the way. So, Ibby, first of all, thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you.
So, I've got a series of 10 questions here that I'm going to ask, and these are the regular 10 questions that I've been asking people that I've been doing these interviews with. So, if I may, can I just start at the beginning? So your northern style is called Jhong Law Horn. Can you summarize this style? Who uses Sifu, what the presence is what the presence here in Hong Kong is, and how long you've been training this style, and is your school a full-time school? So there's lots of open-ended questions there. So if you were to summarize the style, how would you summarize it to somebody that's an outsider?
Thank you, Sifu. So, first and foremost,迷蹤羅漢is a northern Chinese martial art, a northern Chinese martial arts school and culture that has 95 years of presence in Hong Kong.
Wow.
In total, it has about 180 years of history in the world. It originated in northeastern China, in Changzhou, the birthplace of many other northern Chinese martial arts. So it is a typical northern Chinese martial arts in that it has wide stances, high kicks, long arm movements, and the trademark of迷蹤羅漢is 4 tenets that go by Xin Jin Tang law. So what these 4 Chinese characters mean is approximately evasion, expansion, propulsion, and transference of weight and energy.
Okay.
So you can say that they are tenets or a bunch of principles that guide us in how we think about movement in general and how we think about strategy and combat. My teacher is Sifu Lau. He is now 77 years old.
Oh, okay.
He has been studying迷蹤羅漢since the age of 6. His teacher is Grandmaster Lau Chun Keung, and also his father. And the teacher of Grandmaster Lau is the renowned Grandmaster Ibby, who was a bodyguard was an armed guard in northern China in what people then called the bugle, which were martial artists who were hired by rich people and important people to transfer goods from one city to another and fend off bandits on the way. He also taught the soldiers of a number of warlords during the warlord era in the 1920s, and he is best known for bringing迷蹤羅漢to Hong Kong. Okay. So he came to Hong Kong in the year 1930 and brought this martial art that originated from Changzhou to Hong Kong, to the South China Athletic Association of Hong Kong. And I have been studying this martial arts since I was 4 years old. So I started studying. Wow. Yes, I started studying it in 1999.
Yeah, still a very young man.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
You're still a very, very young. Well, that's really thank you for answering that. I know there's lots of questions within that question, within question 1 as well, but just trying to get great summary. Well, so it's a 95 years presence in Hong Kong already. Wow, that's impressive considering Hong Kong was under British rule for 155 of those years. Yeah, right. So the second question is, does your style actually incorporate the line performance, and do you regularly have to do that for Chinese New Year, weddings, maybe funerals or whatever, with that line dancing?
Incidentally, yes.
Line performance.
Yes, we do teach line dancing, and we do have line dance performances, although it is not one would expect from the typical Southern Chinese martial arts school, in that we have what appears to be line dancing, but is not exactly line dancing. We do not follow the proper traditions fully. So the history of how line dancing got into our school was that so there's no legendary story, or there's no moral teaching that can be imparted by this by my recount of this process. It simply is that a few decades ago, some members of the school decided that giving line dance performances would help the school earn a bit of extra income, so they went to study line dancing.
Okay, I see.
With a Southern Chinese martial arts teacher who taught the Fat San style of line dancing. So obviously that plot of making a bit of extra income for the school worked out very well.
Yeah.
And we still practice this style of line dancing. Again, the movements, the drums, the way the drum sounds, the footwork, it is all done according to Fat San style. Though the meaning the line has for us is very different. So line dancing has a strong presence in our religious rituals, which are in spirit northeastern Chinese. So we view the lion as a sort of mythical beast that chases away evil, and there are also certain beliefs related to the northeastern Chinese shamanic religion that has been put into our line dance performances and rituals. So it doesn't go exactly as one would expect of a typical Southern Chinese line dance, though I would say it is highly similar.
So again, again, this is my summary, because we don't have. I've never studied line dance, and also never read. But again, just my observation is that usually there, the line orchestra there in the background, banging out the the loud drums and the cymbals and things like that to scare away the evil spirits and to bring good fortune and good luck. So again, it sounds as though the way you just described it, right, is even though you learned it from the Fat San, even though you're still learning from the Fat San, the tradition is still there. But it's interesting that I find it interesting that the style hasn't, but you managed to incorporate it in order to earn income for the school as well, which is also another interesting thing that I didn't know about.
I think you put it in better words than I have. So line dancing to us is Southern Chinese in style and appearance, though it is Northern Chinese in use.
Right.
Especially in spiritual and ritual use.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Get that. Just moving on to the next question then, Ibby. I mean, this is what I remember about you when I first met you, about the etiquette section as well. And I see etiquette is also very, very important to you. I've seen the way you elegantly greet people, of the other Sifus at different schools and that. So is this part of you, or is it part of the style? Bearing in mind, right, I don't know anybody else that does Jhong Law Horn as well. So is it you, or is it the style? That's the way you elegantly greet people in there. And I've never seen anybody do it that way. So you're one of a kind.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think to answer this question, I have to say that I think out of a stroke of luck, the culture of迷蹤羅漢, especially the culture that our Grandmaster Lau Chun Keung brought to Hong Kong from Shandong, in northern Chinese culture is actually very, very similar to the culture of my family, who are also of northeastern Chinese descent.
Oh, okay.
So I would say again, many of the ways that we think about politeness and etiquette are very similar, although the rules may be slightly different. So etiquette to me evidently is very important. It also has a very strong presence in my life. So I come from a very traditional family, and one of the things we had to study, one of the things I was expected to study as a boy was etiquette. And we had to learn the Chinese way of etiquette, the eclectic way of etiquette that is, in fact, more suitable for life in Hong Kong. And also the English way of etiquette. Of course, I think the very traditional Chinese rituals are rather unseen in Hong Kong. And in Hong Kong, you will not be expected to say, appear in morning dress or dine with 10 or 12 forks. So most of what I learned of etiquette, most of what my etiquette teacher taught me is either by now forgotten or I have never practiced it in my life.
Right.
And that has, again, that has a lot to do with my living in Hong Kong. But what I think about etiquette is that etiquette is actually very simple. One only has to be considerate and have a love for refinement, and also be comfortable with saying thank you, sorry, and please lavishly. And that is 90% of etiquette. The 10% are rules that we may remember, we may forget, we may relearn.
Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that when I first mentioned about that. Again, the next question I was going to, obviously the way you speak English is what I call received pronunciation. And I think the most biggest part of it is that you never actually lived in the UK, but you speak more, I would say that you speak more English, or I would say more educated English than I do, even though I was brought in the UK. I was brought up in the Yorkshire part of the UK, which is more northern than about 200 miles away from London. So again, when I first met you, I was like, I wouldn't say I'm more gobsmacked more than anything else. Like, this guy speaking without pronunciation, better pronunciating English than myself. I was actually born in the UK. That's one of the things that struck me. And then I remember you saying to me, he said, "But do people actually speak like that in the UK?" Yeah, they do. It's the elite, and also probably what you would call the royal family would speak as well, receive pronunciation. There's also, like you say, that you can also go to etiquette school or elocution lessons, right, to actually learn to speak like that. But again, you've never lived in the UK, so again, obviously you've been taught how to speak like this. Was that also part of your etiquette training as well? I remember you said that you had an English guy that also, or somebody from the UK, not an English guy. Sounds so racist that you had somebody from the UK do this, teach you how to do this. So again, part of the growing up was to have that etiquette and speak the correct Queen's English, as it were. Was that also part of your training growing up?
Yes, I think you've raised a number of interesting points, and I must address them first.
Yeah.
So, yes, I first thought, I mean, in my youth, it didn't occur to me that I was speaking any sort of proper sounding English. It didn't occur to me I was speaking received pronunciation of the Queen's English or any sort of English. I just understood what I was speaking to be English, and I thought everyone sounded this way. I mean, of course, this has to do with that I have never visited the UK,
which I find amazing.
Thank you much. Until my very late teens, and And I just thought this was how everyone spoke. And I didn't know that this was called received pronunciation or any sort of accent. It was just something that I found natural. And I would occasionally realize that other people didn't sound like me. So Hong Kong being a cosmopolitan city, people don't tend to react much to your accent when you're a little boy or young teenager. It was only until when I was 18, 19 when people started asking me where I got this accent from. So the answer is from my etiquette teacher, and I studied with him for very many years. He's no longer alive. So he was from Surrey, London. I suppose people over there do speak that way, and he, of course, was born into aristocracy.
Oh, right, yeah. Okay, that's really interesting. I mean, people watching this clip will obviously listen to the way you speak about it and think, oh, this guy must from the UK. Obviously, they can tell I'm from the UK, but I think they'll be amazed that obviously you've never actually been to the UK or lived there for any long period of time that you can actually speak like this. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that struck me about you. Again, there's quite a few things that you're speaking with a received pronunciation accent, and I think I said to you before in the past, it comes the way you speak comes from a way of being authoritative, not in a way of ordering people, but authoritative that you have good knowledge of the language, you know how to handle yourself, and also it's what we expect our BBC news readers to speaking as well. Believe it or not, all those years back with that. Anyway, it's really, that's really interesting.
Again, to me, I've never thought of it as something to be associated with authority or any class of people. To me, it was just the way of speaking English clearly. As my etiquette teacher would consider it to be. And interestingly, I always thought that the people speaking English on TV who are from the UK, I thought they sounded different from how I sounded. I think in my youth, I thought I spoke in a rather eclectic accent. I thought I spoke English with Hong Kong characteristics and pronunciation.
Not at all. Not at all. Maybe. No, I say people watching this clip will probably can relate to me what I said, especially from the industry. The other thing as well, I think last year when we had what do you call him, the Kung Fu genius Alex Winter, he mentioned it as well in one of his clips about you. They said there was when you started speaking to them in their New York American accent, they were so impressed with you that they felt inferior to the way they spoke. I think they mentioned in one of their clips, the Kung Fu genius, when they made their trip to Hong Kong and speaking to you. And again, they were amazed at the fact that you never actually went to the UK.
Well, they're very kind. I do thank them for.
Yeah.
I do thank them for saying so. Again, I think he brought me one of those moments, as have you, that caused me to realise what I'm speaking is quite unusual, in fact.
Yeah. No, look, all I'd say to you is keep it up. Don't ever anybody tell you otherwise. Because it's like I say, it's a very, very elegant way of speaking. Okay, so just moving on to the question, right? So we described your school. I said traditional science. I think you also. I know that you're more born in Hong Kong, right, in Causeway, it's near Causeway Bay, right, takes up valuable spaces, and also you're in a prime location. And you mentioned about learning the line dance in order to be able to compensate, because I know that it takes up very, very expensive Hong Kong prices here as well. Sorry, takes up very valuable spaces at very expensive Hong Kong prices. That's what I meant to say. Yeah, space is a premium here. So again, the way I think you described it earlier, that the way your school did this is by doing kung fu plus one, kung fu line dance performance in order to subsidize that the rent there. I mean, is that also why also including the line dance in order to substitute for the valuable floor space that you take up in the school?
Oh no, that's completely different. I think the line dance was something that the members of our school some decades ago thought they would learn to earn some sort of pocket money for the school.
Right.
And this money would be used for things like banquets, rituals, gatherings. Again, we are not only martial arts school, I would also describe us as a culture, as a family, in that we are more closely knit than the average Chinese martial arts school. And we are a school that has what I term peripheral cultures, in that we have a very unique culture of dining together. We uphold Northern Chinese table manners that have been in practice for more than 90 years. We gather frequently for religious rituals and ancestral worship, and just to celebrate the important Chinese occasions of the year.
Okay. Oh, hence the Hong Kong Taste Instagram page that you've got. I know.
Yes.
I noticed that you it's mainly based around the food that you have.
Yes,
or,
that's
or,
right.
or the gathering of the food that you have. Right. Okay, I get it. I just wanted to ask, right, during the pandemic and also your Sifu, how did the school cope with that? The 2 years of lockdown and things like that. Obviously, nobody could attend the school. So what did your Sifu just stop teaching, or you just said, "Oh, let's go online with it"? So as it adopt? Did your Sifu adopt to the change, or you just waited until the end and started teaching again?
I think we managed to cope very well through the pandemic. Thanks, with much thanks to the South China Athletic Association, our host organization. I mean, obviously, whether we were able to hold classes was completely up to them, and they abide very closely to government regulations. So whenever we could hold classes, they would inform us, and we would go back to hold classes. When classes had to stop, they would inform us, and we would not have classes. So the way my Sifu cope with this is essentially to wait out the pandemic. So when we could not hold classes, there were no special arrangements. Although this, I don't think in any way disrupted the fabric of our school, as we are a very closely knit community. And when we could not attend classes, we had gatherings as soon as the restrictions became lax. We had dinners. I think we would meet up in the houses of certain members and celebrate occasions such as the posthumous birthdays and death anniversaries of our masters. Again, we are not only about the Chinese martial arts and the spiritual side of us, the ritualistic side of us, the cult side of us. Everything that we have practiced consistently over the past 95 years, these other things, they have been like a glue that kept us together at hard times. So we are not only about martial skill. We could even say that Jhong Law Horn is a lifestyle.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. I mean, having known you these last couple of years, I feel as though it's more than just practicing the art itself. It's I see it again on Instagram posts. You regularly with your Sifu, you regularly either celebrating or having dinner together, or there's a ritual that you have to attend. And I know that the it's not so much the not the baisi, but what do you call it when you're giving respects to your elders? by a legal Sifu, kind of thing. I see regularly on Instagram doing that in your post. I can see that it's not just turning up for class and then paying a fee and then going, and then I can see that it's almost encompassing, embracing this as well.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah. So if we just move on to the actual Kung Fu itself. So I think you mentioned this before, but well, you've told me anyway. How many forms do you have in total, including the weapons you have in your whole system? I think you mentioned about 28, something like that, if I remember. If not more.
In total, I think if we were to, we have a list of all the forms that we have. There are about 170 forms, although I think that the more important ones, or the most important ones, are 20 or so.
Okay.
Or even less than 20.
Right.
And many of these other forms, I would describe them as borrowed forms, where members of our school or previous grandmasters, they went to, they studied other systems of Chinese martial art, and they decided that so-and-so form would be very beneficial to the students in the Zhong Law Horn community, because it taught them to move in a certain way, or think about combat in a certain way. So they brought it back to the school and caused their practice to become widespread. And obviously they were changed such that their movements reflected迷蹤羅漢principles. Yet once again, I think the most important forms are 20 or so.
Okay, yeah, that's where I get the figure from, because I remember you saying the number and then you saying that the most important was like these 20 or so. Oh no, thanks. 100 odds is quite a large number.
No one remembers 100 something forms.
Yeah. Okay, so just moving swiftly on to the next question. So obviously I've seen you're doing your sword weaponry in the Gun sometimes. I can see that your weapons is a big part of your style, and I also see that you're very skillful and knowledgeable about the way you handle your sword as well. Because I've obviously seen you do that, and I've also asked you questions about you've been able to sort of give your viewpoint, which actually makes a lot of sense to me. Would you say that these weapons still have a place in today's society? I mean, obviously you can't. What I mean by that, you can't carry a long sword on the street, so people will say to you, what's the point of learning it if you can't be able to use it? So again, so the question to you is, do you think that these weapons type of training still have a place in today's society, even in sophisticated Hong Kong? If I may ask you that question.
Absolutely, I think they have a place in today's society, and for a number of reasons. I'll list a few of these reasons. First and foremost, they are ways to teach us the weapons, the movements, the routines, and ways to teach us coordination. They are ways to teach us how to be aware of the space around us and what we are holding. And in that manner, they are no different from gym equipment, in that they're tools to help you train your body to achieve a specific effect, to help you better specific sorts of coordination to strengthen specific parts of the body. So we can think of them as simply as just tools. They also carry aesthetic and cultural weight. So there's a story behind every weapon, there's a story behind every form, and there are emotions and aesthetics that go with every routine. So what I've just told you is what most martial arts teachers will tell you when you face them with this question. Yet my view is that they are still relevant in the combat sense, because they're in fact no different weapons, but only different classes of weapons. So in essence, a very long pole is not too different from a spear, and a glaive is not too different from a halberd. In that, the classes of weapons that exist are such that they are only short weapons, very short weapons, sword-like weapons, long weapons, very long weapons, and dual-wield weapons. Now, we might not see people walking around with a sword or a guando, a glaive in the streets, but it's very easy to find an object that resembles, that has the physical properties of these weapons. You know, what you learn from a guando routine could very well come in handy when you have to fight with a chair. What you use in a stick routine, what you learn in a stick or pole routine could very well be executed through a broom you pick up on the streets, or a pole you find from a construction site. I'm not saying that we should pick up weapons on the streets and start fighting with them, but there will always, I think there will always be parallels between these skills that people have passed on for generations or even centuries, and what will always happen in society, which is that we will always have physical confrontations, and we will always see the need to defend ourselves once in a while with objects, tools, and makeshift weapons.
Okay, yeah, see what I mean. So using as I think the English way of saying it is the street furniture.
Yes, that's right.
The street furniture, right. Just finally, Ibby, if I may, so exposure to other martial art or other forms of martial arts. Again, living in Hong Kong, we've got very many different styles in the day, and it's also what I call a mecca of everything that's here. Do you have exposure to every other sorts of martial arts as well as being your own, as well as being迷蹤羅漢? Do you have exposure to other martial arts here?
Yes, I do. I have. In fact, I think we are very blessed that we're not only in Hong Kong, as you said, the mecca of the Chinese martial arts, but we are also in a place and time where teachers are very progressive. So gone are the days where people, where teachers would tell you, you can only study one martial art because that signifies your loyalty to so-and-so lineage or teacher. Many teachers nowadays, more than we imagine, want their students to learn as widely as possible, so that they can not only strengthen themselves comprehensively, but bring from other styles strength that can be used to support their main style. So I've always told people that that we should stop thinking of the Hong Kong martial arts as a net of rivalries. There are such rivalries, but I don't think they're commonplace. In fact, many martial artists, many of the sons of Sifus, many of the old Sifus, they're friends, and I see it such that I tell people the Hong Kong Chinese martial arts is very much like the European royal families. Everyone is related to everyone. So I think everyone has studied, most prominent martial artists have studied under at least 2 or 3 masters, and are Si Sok Si Heng or Si Dai to some other person, to some other Chinese martial artist. So I have had experience in Japanese swordsmanship. I've done a bit of Turkish and Italian swordsmanship, and in Hong Kong, I've also studied other styles. So other styles of Northern Chinese martial art, and very importantly, I have had a lot of exchange with our Gong Sifu, who is a very generous teacher, always generous with his knowledge and time, and he gives knowledge in a very clear-headed and an open-minded manner, and enters into these discussions without being judgmental. So through him, especially through what he knows of the long pole, I have managed to better my own Jhong Law Horn technique, and especially our signature weapon, the spear of Jhong Law Horn. So I think I don't take this for granted that I have all these teachers around me who are able to give me knowledge, and that my Sifu was so open-minded such that he not only does not stop me from speaking with him, but encourages me to know more of these sifus. In fact, I've also learned very important things from you. I do appreciate how your classes, you teach Wing Chun and Krav Maga, but you try not to strip your students of their native style or what they know or are used to in terms of their own practice of the martial arts. You try to allow them to see how what their practice can be used in a very realistic way in a confrontation. You, in fact, I think teach them skills more than movements and ways of judgment instead of routines. You teach them a very valuable set of ways of doing things that will turn what they already know into things that are sound in combat.
Yeah, no, and likewise, Ibby, I think especially with the hand-to-hand combat, yeah, I remember that those exchanges very, very well. And likewise, when because you play with the sword a lot, I think we was asking you about what you thought of I think it was the Bong Dong Gap Do Bong Do, right? And I was asking you, what do you think it's right? And you said actually there's a place for all these techniques. You made me realize actually it depends on the distancing when and where you can use it. I remember you specified that. And again, this is not about you being better than me or anything. It's just about exchanging knowledge and your knowledge, right? And again, I never even thought about it that way. And I should have asked you a lot earlier. But again, I didn't. When I saw you with your, because I've seen you doing obviously your sword forms and practicing, and I thought it'd be relevant. I never saw the relevance actually in asking you to do this. But when I did ask you, I said, what are your thoughts about this Bong Do and this Gap Do? I mean, those are the two main conversations about the Wing Chun world here. Whether it exists or doesn't exist, or whether it can be used in a practical sense when you're holding especially when you're holding two bat dam dos or do. And you just said, oh, it's yes, you can trap the spear. I remember you saying to me, but it says you have to stick with it going downwards in order to strike with ups. And again, I think until I always thought that when somebody does a spear, right, they're going to be at length distance to you. But you also said that you could also sneak up as well. You can also sneak up the pole as well. Not just controlling, as in easy way and strike with your hand. They said that's where you thought, and that was a value insight from me because obviously you're a lot younger than me, and what we said about before Sifu, right? I've obviously done a lot of webinars with him, in the comparison with Hungarian Wing Chun as well. And it's also been a useful insight to me because I think most styles of Chinese Kung Fu, right, there's a common theme about striking, about blocking, and also about either getting your opponent off center, and also whether you actually dominated the center line. I think most Kung Fu styles are based around that. But I see that sometimes it's just lost in translation. Along the way, maybe the Sifu didn't understand it when he was taught, and he just that's the way it is. But again, being able to spot what I saw with you when you were practicing, and again, we just randomly I think I was explaining the Lan Sao to you, wasn't I? And I said, oh, I know how and when to use this. And then I saw the spark in your head, went, oh, I know this form that I know what it's related to now. And then we started going through it bit by bit, and you could see just from that one movement, right? You could see right how it all interlinked with it. Which again, this is just this. And like you said, I wasn't trying to change your way of doing your style of Kung Fu. It's just the way that I interpreted what I saw, right? My interpretation of what you saw, and then you saw it. You collected all the dots together and think actually this is how I can use it in a practical sense. And again, to me, right, that's what I mean when you exchange knowledge of Kung Fu in general, martial arts in general. This is what you want. I'm not there to change you into being a Wing Chun. Just looking at you to see you elaborate your style. Yeah. Anyway, I've gone on enough there.
I think you raised a number of good points on this part of Chinese martial arts. So very quickly,
Yeah.
again, I think a lot of the Chinese martial arts deals with what I call the 2%, where if we think about it, so 98% of the time, any sort of fighting is just two people, two people either being very distant or being very closed and throwing punches, kicks, and sword blows at each other. It's about swiping with weapons. It's about swiping and getting to the frontest and most vulnerable parts of the body. So, you will not see, I would say, so many of the techniques that are taught in martial arts routines in a normal fight. So, even sneaking up on a pole with the butterfly knives, again, this is not something you will be able to easily do. It is something you will only be able to do 2% of the time when someone makes a serious mistake, when you're very good with your footwork and when chances on your side. And we have to understand it this way. And what I think is good about your classes, is very good about your classes, is that you inject a sense of reality into the study of the Chinese martial arts. You give us skills to cope with the 98%, so that we can put our martial arts in the context of the reality of combat and how confrontations truly work. And then upon that, you teach us how to make sense of the 2%, which is in fact what most Chinese martial arts and most Oriental martial arts, in fact, represent.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, never looked at it from that point of view, actually. Ibby. Right, I think that's it. We're done. Yeah, that's it. We're done.
Oh, thank you.
So I say cut here. I'll just stop it.